Hello, EnderSword here again, this time with a replay from Yuna as his main race. We previously saw a replay from Yuna as Yuna. Protoss is actually his main race before we saw as Zerg, so we will take a look at this game for him as well. This time playing against the Zerg player, Rikki. The three things that we're going to be looking at in this game are the use of macro mechanics throughout the game. So whether or not probes are being made, whether or not chrono boost is being done, production is actually going, and whether or not chrono is being used on the right things that make some sense. We're going to be looking at the importance of proxy pylons when launching your attacks and reinforcing your army, and the difference it makes in having them and not having them in place. And the third thing that we're going to be looking at is hitting timings, actually making a decent timing attack that makes your attack more powerful. A lot of people hear the word timing, and frankly, it's just thrown around a lot. Oh, I hit a good timing there, or something. People tend to just say it when they mean any form of attack. That's not really what it means. The idea is to line up certain key pieces of technology or key production or key units or whatever to really hit your opponent at a really advantageous time for you and a really awkward time for them. And at super high levels, these timing attacks have windows of seconds long, if that, in a lot of cases. So they're really precisely timed out that at 6 minutes and 34 seconds I'm going to hit with 12 units, and it's going to be right when his, Roach Warren is half done, or something like that. You're trying to hit an actual timing that catches your opponent off guard and catches you at great advantage. At the lower level, you're not going to have such precision to what it is. People aren't going to be hitting their timing that their buildings are done or their tech is done quite as precisely as they are as you go higher up, but it doesn't mean that the concept is invalid. There's still ways that you can work to your own advantage on when to launch attacks and how to pace out the technologies that you're researching and production that you're doing so that you make your attacks particularly strong. So those are the things we'll be looking at here. Back to the actual game itself, we see the Protoss player taking a bit of a risk in not really walling off his front. You do tend to want against Zerg to leave only one little corridor so that a single unit can block that off if there is a really strong Ling play or Roach Ling all-in type play. This is a bit vulnerable here. So given that he's so close anyway, it doesn't take much to just step it over, block it off, play it safe, and just do it that way, particularly at this point in the game. The Zerg does get a lot of information from the fact that he's gone 2 Stalkers very early. He threw away a lot of Zerglings coming down here. Each of these has 3 kills because he took them 2 at a time into his base. It didn't make a ton of sense, but he did get some information out of it. And if I was a Zerg player at this point and saw 2 or 3 Stalkers out with no other apparent tech, and the Zerg player at this point does know that there's 2 gateways, sees some Stalkers, doesn't know about the Twilight Council that's going down here. But I would assume at this point that it was, in fact, Blink that was coming out. He didn't actually see the gases. He should have scouted better when coming in. But still, seeing those Stalkers out that quick, I'd probably assume there are 2 gases and think that I am going to be facing a Blink Stalker army pretty shortly here. So be aware that you are tipping off your opponent on what you're doing a lot of the time by just going straight to the technology that you have. Now, focusing on the Blink tech itself, we can see that he chronoed this out a lot. I believe 3 chronos were spent to get that out very quickly, which shows a high level of priority that he really wanted this Blink done. But when it is done, he's kind of in his base, picking off an Overlord. He makes a warp in here. Good move to have that there so you can warp in on the low ground. But after Blink is done, we're just now looking at the idea of moving out of the base, and we're just now coming up to take and clean out that watchtower. That makes it very apparent that this is an attack that's incoming. And there's no support up here for this army. The army moves up, but we're still warping in back home. So when this attack occurs, does pick off that Overlord, probably a good idea. He doesn't realize that the force was behind him, of course, but does a pretty decent job handling this. Loses a few more stalkers than he probably could have if he had gone right against a wall. You can use this gap so that you can blink back, and you can't get surrounded as much, but overall pretty good. Actually pretty good blink skills, particularly for, I believe, silver gold level type play. But we do get a bit of a surround on some of the stalkers. They are a little too spread out. You tend to want to blink so that you're still staying clumped. You want something to come from the front and just behind so that you're not creating this big gap between everything for the lings to just flood in and get surrounds on your individual stalkers. But overall, a pretty good push. He could have came out with a lot more units left, but did certainly more damage than he took at this point, so we call it somewhat successful, at least for now. He blinks back, but this is where the lack of a proxy pylon really comes in. He's blinking back and retreating back much farther than he would have liked to. If he had a proxy pylon up in this area, or even preferably shielded in this gold area where the opponent has to run around, you only have to fall back to that pylon where your warp-in has just occurred. But by not having it there, he's giving the Zerg a lot of time to get these spine crawlers up, because each of these pushes back, which should only be for a few seconds at a time, end up going back way farther than they should, so that they can then rendezvous with the reinforcements. And you can see some of his attention on reinforcements and commands that he's giving are not leading them to be rallied to the front as good as you would like. He does take advantage of a big Zerg blunder here. The Overlords were rallied right to the location that the Stalkers were being warped in. And at home during all of that, his mechanics have kind of fallen apart. He's got max chrono boost, and he wasn't making probes for a long period of time. Now that the attack is over, he focuses back home and realizes, oh, okay, no, I do have to make some of that. And he actually starts chronoing again, switching to a new tech path, and then ultimately expanding. A lot of this happened once the attack was repelled. It would be better to have that happening more simultaneously with that attack, so that this stuff is done by the time that pressure is off, and he's now pumping in full gear, whereas this is now a little bit beyond when the attack was kind of repelled, and he's not that much farther ahead than what the Zerg is trying to do here. We do have a probe advantage over the drones, but now nothing's really being added strongly to this Stalker force, and this is no longer being perceived as a big threat. He's got a lot of lings at home. He's got a bunch of spine crawlers up. It's unlikely that that force is going to break through the front, so the pressure is off the Zerg player a lot, and he'll be able to take advantage of that by droning up very heavily in order to catch up to the Protoss, who is frankly slacking off a little bit in his probe production back home as he switches into new tech path here. So you want to keep that army kind of mobile, keep them poking at the front. There's nothing really that would have stopped him from taking up this gold before it ever went up. So you do want to stay on top of that. You've got that for a mobility purpose, not just for that one push. And so be using that army. He does in a bit, but there was a lot of kind of laying off him time, and you can see that very quickly the drone count comes right back up to that probe count number, and that's something you just don't want the Zerg to be able to do. He did a lot of that early aggression damage, but Zerg can recover very, very quickly, particularly if you're letting them get hatcheries up, because their production can just pump itself completely into the economy. Does take a poke in here to see what's going on. This ultimately leads to another engagement. One micro blunder people make a lot with stalkers is this. Do not blink directly into a melee force. Try not to blink into a fight at all. He ends up losing a lot of those and leaving a lot badly damaged that he didn't have to before he pulls back and gets his zealots in front. The zealots should have been leading that charge into the base, and he lost a ton of stalkers that he didn't have to in that engagement because you blink in. The blink is supposed to be your escape mechanism or maneuverability mechanism to get to areas you can't, get away from forces that you can't. You don't want to blink onto melee units because that's exactly what they want you to do. They want to be in close contact with you and then have you not be able to blink away from them. So he ended up losing a lot of stalkers there. Back home, we do get a lot of tech going on. Robo Bay, he is supply blocking himself during the middle of that engagement. Again, kind of lost focus. Back home, we have a bit of an excessive Robo Bay transition, or Robo Facility transition. 3 Robo Facilities are about to be up. That is a bit excessive off of 2 base. He can't really support that. There's no reason to go beyond 1 or 2. And really in this case, probably more gateways would have been a slightly better idea to keep that going, since you've spent so much tech on both the charge lots and blink stalkers that only a few Colossus would actually be helpful here. And he ultimately doesn't even really produce out of this 3rd one at all. It's not something that can truly be supported. You can see his money starts to drop very quickly, and he's actually just not using his warp gates anymore. So when you make that sort of hard switch, make sure that you can actually support what you're doing. And if you find yourself in a resource imbalance there, like he was obviously lacking in minerals to keep this up, then get some sentries out or something. Actually be using the resources that are available to you. And again, there's just no proxy pylon up here. There needs to be one like around this watchtower where he kept falling back to, or up in this area, so that he can actually be reinforcing this attack. Ultimately, the Protoss here is just too strong, and he's going to crush through this anyway. He was aware that there were Hydras coming out. He happened to see some plot from that gold base, so he knew early on the Zerg force is very squishy here. Leave some zealots in behind that aren't doing much. Good blink back there to let the zealots in front. And this game is basically over. But it's important to note one really good thing that he's doing. This game is definitely over, but we're still expanding, and we're still just now putting down more gateways and stuff. Always play as if the game is not over. Always play as if he's got 8 hidden bases somewhere, and that you need to continue at it. And don't just take your foot off the gas because you figure this is the final push. But you can see again reinforcements just coming from really far away. These ones not being properly rallied to the places they want to be. And so just be aware of that. This one, that would have been the first Colossus ever out of it. But on the same side, this isn't being used. So he never really was fully able to support the 3 of those. So the 3 keys to this game, again, are timings. If you're going to rush a tech, be ready to use that tech right away. If you're going to rush production, be ready to use that production right away. There has to be a reason you're doing it, and aligning all those things together lets you hit a strong timing. Get a proxy pylon up and forward. You want to be reinforcing where you're attacking or nearby. And macro mechanics. If you're going to do some economic damage like this, make sure you're producing at home. Make sure you're using chronos at home so that you can really secure that advantage. Thanks for